So now that more people have been vaccinated, workers are finally heading back to offices after 18 months at home. But the road to normality is unlikely to be smooth, with employers juggling needs from their staff. So, can your boss force you to go back into the office? We enlisted the help of Bloomberg reporters.
Hello, it's Hugo Miller in Geneva.
Hi, I'm Robert Iafola.
To find out what the law says about the big return to the office where you are. Could it be considered a breach of contract if employees refuse to come back to the office? In literal terms, yes, it could be. If employers ask employees to return to the office and they refuse to do so, then that is a breach of the employment contract and also a failure to comply with what lawyers call a reasonable management instruction. However, the lawyers I spoke to stressed that in most cases, the individual circumstances and employee perspective will be taken into consideration.
That's not a big concern in the United States because outside of high-level executives and workers who are represented by unions, workers don't really have employment contracts. And also keep in mind that just about 6% of the US workforce in the private sector is unionized, and a union contract is more likely to govern the process for firing a worker for not returning to the office rather than for being the reason to fire that worker.
Isabel Wildhaber, professor of employment law at the University of St. Gallen here in Switzerland, thinks that for the time being, local employers are still being accommodating. But if they start insisting on a return to office, more litigation is quite possible. Employers need to have and adhere to an appropriate workplace health and safety plan, says Wildhaber. If they do so, they can insist on employees coming back to the office.
Can employees use health and safety concerns as a reason to not come back? So yes, they can, but it will be difficult. Employees have to show that they have an imminent fear of danger against them in UK law. It's very specific and it depends what the alternative could be. It would also take into consideration whether they're still going out with friends and still socialising outside of the office.
The answer is unless they have extenuating medical circumstances, under Swiss law, they have to come back if there are appropriate health and safety measures in place at their workplace.
U.S. anti-discrimination law protects workers who have disabilities. So if a worker has a health condition and their doctor tells them that it's not safe for them to return to the office, and they can use that as a reason to avoid returning to the office.
We also asked the lawyers about whether employers could mandate vaccines. So mandating vaccination in the UK is very difficult because there will be some employees who are not able to be vaccinated for religious, health or cultural reasons. It runs the risk of that being discriminatory. Lawyers also stress that there is no medical evidence that an unvaccinated person is more likely to transmit COVID, and the government themselves is not actually mandating vaccines.
Companies have wide latitude to impose vaccine mandates based on their ability to set and enforce the terms and conditions of employment. Now, if they do have a vaccine mandate, they do need to make accommodations for workers that have health conditions and can't get vaccinated because of those, or won't get vaccinated because of religious objections.
Switzerland earlier this month made a COVID pass mandatory to access any restaurant or bar, but the pass can only be used by employers to help them draw up office health and safety plans, but not as a requirement for showing up to work.
Will widespread changes in employment contracts start to happen? So the lawyers I spoke to said that contractual changes are not happening en masse at the moment. Most employers are choosing to implement new policies instead, which set out a framework for working from home. The experts stress that changes made to permanent positions must follow a lawful process.
Again, employment contracts in the United States are exceedingly rare. Union contracts can be renegotiated, but that tends to happen at the end of the expiration of a contract, and those contracts last usually between 2 and 5 years.
There are many companies in Switzerland that are already implementing hybrid working policies, according to the University of St. Gallen's Wildhaber. If employers want to make changes to permanent positions, however, they need to either get consent from their employees or they need to enforce a unilateral change of contract under Swiss law.